Top story on ABC News Breakfast. Rupert Murdoch has called it the most humbling day of his life. The News Corporation boss and his son James have apologised to British MPs during a 3-hour grilling over the phone hacking scandal. Rupert Murdoch says he's not responsible for the scandal, blaming the people he trusted to run the company.
He says he was shocked, appalled and ashamed when he heard the phone of murdered teenager Millie Dowler had been hacked. And in a dramatic finale to the hearing, a protester threw shaving cream at Mr Murdoch and was escorted away by police.
Just tell me whether or not the Taylor settlement included a confidentiality clause, and maybe the other settlement did not.
Can I, on behalf of the committee, thank you for giving up so much of your time this afternoon to come here, and I would like to apologise again for the wholly unacceptable treatment that you received from a member of the public.
That was Committee Chair John Whittingdale there responding to what was quite an incredible security breach at that committee hearing.
For more on the parliamentary hearing on the phone hacking scandal, we're joined by Lisa Miller in London. And Lisa, as we saw from that, no shortage of action and apologies during this dramatic day in London.
It was quite extraordinary because it was right at the very end of the hearing. In fact, the last Member of Parliament had said, "You'll be pleased to know that after 2.5 hours of sitting here, I am the last one to start asking you questions." And as she started to ask the questions, you saw that extraordinary scene. And of course, Wendy Deng leaping up, who she'd sat there the whole time behind her husband, sometimes encouraging him, sometimes telling him not to bang on the table as he was speaking to the committee members, but she leapt up and slapped this fellow, who was immediately taken away by police. It's understood that he's a comedian who has done this before and had tweeted something to the effect that he was planning it just before he lodged that attack. So they immediately shut down the committee hearing, took a 5-minute break. We wondered whether they were going to come back at all. In fact, they did. Rupert Murdoch had lost his jacket because he'd ended up with some cream on it, so he came back jacketless, and they finished the proceedings, but not before one of the committee members actually congratulated Wendy Deng on her left hook. She leapt pretty quickly, and most people were quite impressed. They were calling it the new Chinese superpower.
Well, it was a quite impressive response by Wendy Deng. That capped off what was a pretty bad day for Rupert Murdoch. He described it as the most humble day of his life.
Look, it was, you could say, a pretty bad day that this was the Murdochs, this great, powerful media family, facing this grilling in front of the committee. But most of the reaction already has suggested that they handled it pretty well. They initially started off by wanting to deliver opening statements and were refused that ability. James Murdoch then started apologising again for actions that had happened at the newspaper, and Rupert Murdoch touched his hand and said, no, I want to say something. And that's when he used those words that you've played, saying that it was the most humble day that he had had. But there was certainly quite a bit of passion surrounding the incident, which everyone here has gotten so worked up about, and that is the hacking of the murdered schoolgirl's phone, Millie Dowler. Now, Rupert Murdoch said he didn't know about that until 8 days ago, and let's have a little listen to how he reacted in the committee hearing.
At no time do I remember being as sickened as when I heard what the Dowler family had to endure, which I think was last Monday week. Nor do I recall being as angry as when I was told that the news of the world could have compounded their distress. And it not only betrayed our readers and me, but also the many thousands of magnificent professionals in other divisions of our company around the world.
Rupert Murdoch there, and Lisa, similar sentiments expressed during later testimony by Rebecca Brooks, the former head of News International.
Yes, she had a few allegations and accusations put to her. She certainly started her testimony by again apologising and talking about how sorry she was to everyone, but also she was asked about the previous testimony that she had given in a committee many years ago about bribing police officers. She said that she had never knowingly sanctioned it. She talked about the private investigators and said newspapers hire them, but she'd never known that they were doing anything illegal in their hiring. But again, as you say, it was the Millie Dowler incident which certainly sparked her passionate response as well. Let's have a listen.
We saw the story at the same time that you all saw the story. My instant reaction, like everybody else, was one of shock and disgust that a family who had suffered so much already had these allegations that were clearly added immeasurably to their suffering. The first thing I did was write to Mr. and Mrs. Dowler with a full apology to say that we would get to the bottom of the allegations, and if anyone either representing the News of the World or authorised by a professional journalist at the News of the World, which I still find staggering to believe. But if we find out that is true, and I have every confidence that News International and the police will get to the bottom of that, and they should, as a priority.
Rebecca Brooks there, and Lisa, the other key player, of course, was James Murdoch. He was quite incensed by that shaving cream attack on his dad. How did he handle himself generally under questioning about the Millie Dowler affair and the other hacking allegations at the News of the World?
Look, most people this evening are suggesting that he did pretty well, and certainly everyone was watching to see both how father and son had gone. And one of the questions to James Murdoch was how much coaching they'd got and what they'd been told to say and do. He said the advice that they had received was to be as open and transparent as possible, and that's what they were trying to achieve with their appearance before the committee. But Michael, perhaps the only the slip-up, the killer blow, as someone described it, was when he was asked whether the hacker, who was the private investigator who hacked that mobile phone of Millie Dowler, whether he was still having his legal fees paid for by News International. James Murdoch sort of skirted around that and then finally had to confirm that even though they were revulsed by the phone hacking, they said that it was something so abhorrent that they were in fact still paying. So let's have a listen to what he had to say.
I don't know the details of the civil actions, but I do know that certain legal fees were paid for Mr. Mulcair by the company, and I was as surprised and shocked to learn that as you are. When the allegations came out, I said, "How could we? Are we doing this? Is this what the company is doing?" And on legal advice, and again, I don't want to be legalistic, and I'm not a lawyer, but these are serious litigations. It's important for all of the evidence from all of the defendants to get to court at the right time. And the strong advice was that from time to time, it's important and customary even to pay co-defendants legal fees.
James Murdoch, and finally, Lisa, and briefly, the $64,000 question was asked by Conservative MP Louise Mensch of Rupert Murdoch, and that is whether he'd resign over this scandal. How did he respond to that?
With one word initially, and that was no, Michael. The upshot very quickly was that the Murdochs were not responsible for this, that they trusted people who had let them down, and those people should pay.
Lisa Miller in London, thank you very much.
Thanks.